The Chiefs have a very interesting position battle in training camp, and it's the battle for who is going to be the starting punter. In this video, I am joined by Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, and we are going to break down who is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs starting punter in 2025. But if you guys are new to this channel, my name is Michael Darcy. Hit that like button and subscribe for more daily Chiefs coverage. Now, Josh, one of the only position battles that's really worth talking about in late June is who is going to be the starting punter, which I did not think that we'd be talking about in late June, but the Chiefs are actually in a very interesting position. The Chiefs had Matt Araiza as the punter last year, and then this offseason, they brought in UDFA from USC, Eddie Chaplicki, who was the Ray Guy Award winner in 2024. The Ray Guy Award, of course, goes to the best punter in college football, an award that Matt Araiza actually won back in 2021. And so the Chiefs have two Ray Guy Award winners battling it out for the starting punter job. And this is something that actually ESPN writer Adam Teicher and Pete Sweeney both believe is a big battle to watch in the first couple of weeks of camp. So I guess I want to ask your thoughts on this situation, and what are your early thoughts on this battle?
Well, obviously it's a position battle that I think we're not talking enough about because you mentioned a couple of them, Pete Sweeney and Adam Teicher, two guys that have pointed this out, but I've seen several other Chiefs beat writers talk about how, hey, guys, we need to be paying attention to this. Like, it is not set in stone that Matt Araiza is the starting punter for this team, despite the fact that the Chiefs brought him back. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on, and let's just call him Eddie because I think that's easier, but I'm not an expert on him as a punter, but I will say it does make sense that the Chiefs would bring in competition for Matt Araiza because even though he still does have quite a leg, I don't think he quite was the punter that he was being advertised as last year. Didn't seem to have a ton of control. Obviously, he can boot the ball very far, but didn't seem to have a lot of accuracy and a lot of control with where he wanted the ball to go. And so I think it's good that the Chiefs have brought in competition for him. Now, as of today, I think I would still lean towards Matt Araiza being the starting punter. But this is going to be very interesting, and it's definitely not a guarantee that it is him.
Well, it's funny that you mention it because Matt Araiza was someone that I think fans really fell in love with because he could just absolutely boot the football, and he loved to get involved in, tackling the kick returner or the punt returner. And so that's something that I think the fans really enjoyed, but he really didn't have a lot of touch, inside the 20. And I'm looking at these stats right here. His average punt gross average was 48.8 yards, and his longest punt was 72 yards, which is just insane. But if we just look at his punts inside the 20, he had 25. And that's something, when you punt the ball 62 times, that's not great. That's not a great conversion rate. And he had a touchback on 14.5% of his punts. And so the Chiefs might be looking for someone in Eddie Chaplicki that can be better at surgically putting the ball, within the 10, within the 5, and definitely more consistently within the 20 because the Chiefs did have, their fair share of touchbacks last year.
Yeah, it seemed like, and you put it perfectly, there was a lack of touch with Matt Araiza, and a lot of plays in which he really should have pinned the other team inside the 10 or the 5, it just went through the end zone. Again, really big leg, doesn't seem to have a lot of control with his punts, though, and the stats definitely back that up. So, with that being said, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I think Matt Araiza still has a leg up, no pun intended, on Mr. Eddie because he has punted in the NFL. I mean, we can't understate how important it is to have that NFL experience and have that over a guy when it comes to an in-camp battle. And I think the Chiefs still have a lot invested in Matt Araiza, and honestly, I still feel very strongly about Matt Araiza because we also have to acknowledge with him that he was out of football for at least a year. I think it was over a year with all of his stuff going on off the field. And last season, because he essentially missed his rookie season. And that really hurts your development, obviously, to not get that first year of experience in the NFL. Matt Araiza has that now under his belt, and I think he's only going to get better in 2025.
Well, something that I think is also worth mentioning is that I feel like for a pro athlete, they can learn how to get the touch part down. And maybe that is just completely, coming out of my butt, but I feel like if we just look at some of the other punters, like I always think back to the Pat McAfee story where he was talking about how the Colts brought in someone for competition, maybe similar to what the Chiefs are doing right now with Matt Araiza, and it's because they wanted McAfee to be better at directional punting. And guess what? He kind of put his head down, and it wasn't that hard for a pro athlete to learn how to directionally punt. And so maybe this is a situation where they're bringing in, Chaplicki just to, make Matt Araiza fear for his job a little bit and maybe try to improve on some of the things that Dave Tobe is trying to get him to do better. And I do think that you're correct in saying that Araiza is still the favorite for the job. And this is something that hopefully we should know pretty quickly who's going to end up being the starter. This isn't something that should drag on, into mid-July. You don't need to go into a training, or not a training camp. You don't need to go into a preseason game with both of these guys still on the roster.
Yeah, I agree. And I also completely agree with what you said about him being competition. I think that's exactly what it is. I think they're bringing in the new punter, the UDFA, to push Matt Araiza, and that's what they should do. That's what any well-run organization should do, is bring in competition so that no one's ever too comfortable.
And guess what? Even if it doesn't work out for Araiza, like Chaplicki was the Ray Guy Award winner, and it's kind of crazy you have two of the best punters in college football on the same roster. But Josh, I think that's really all the time we have in this video. I didn't want to spend too much time talking about the punter position battle that's taking place, but this is something that we'll definitely monitor in training camp and something that I'm sure is going to be worth talking about. But I think it's just such an interesting sign that the Chiefs are so set at so many different parts of their roster that this is really the only position battle worth actually talking about. This is the only battle that's up for debate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's going to be a couple other, battles to see who's going to start. Left tackle, we've talked about that one enough. But even with those, it's like you're not really necessarily talking about someone surprisingly making the roster over another guy. Well, punter's the position where it's like you don't really carry more than one punter, so like this is for the job here for those two guys.
Yeah, and listen, I think that either candidate the Chiefs decide to go with is probably going to be all right. Like, I feel like the Chiefs, towards the end of Dustin Colquitt's career, he wasn't great, but, they made it work, and guess what? They still won a Super Bowl. So I do think the Chiefs will be okay with whatever guy they end up choosing, but I do expect Matt Araiza to win that job fairly early on in training camp. So Josh, that's all the time we have in this video. Guys, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more daily Chiefs coverage. And Josh, my final question for you is, where can the people find your stuff?
You can find me on YouTube. Show Me Football is the channel name. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com, and then also follow me on Twitter at ShowMeFB.
And guys, all that stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Thank you for watching, and as always, go Chiefs.